Uh, so in any case, the problems that I had when with going through my mom's Alzheimer's journey is that we really struggled with a lot of documents. We were what we thought we were prepared. So my background is that I'm Pam Ostrowski, and I wrote the book. It's Not That Simple. And it's based on my mom's 14-year journey. It's got 49 5-star reviews. And basically, it's all about all the things that you need to know, all of the decisions. And I actually wanted Libby to help us out in order to make sure that you guys don't end up in the same situation that my mom and dad did. So, Libby, do you want to take it away?
Sure, I sure will. So, Pam, thank you so much for doing this. And also for asking me what are the three most important things that we can put in place. And surprisingly, I won't say will or trust, because most people know you need a will or a trust. And as a matter of fact, a lot of people who come to my office to try to get something in place that they are sure is going to serve them have a will, and they have nothing else. Wow. And so I want to talk about the things that you need in addition to that will and trust. And so the first one is, so it's the financial power of attorney. So let me talk about the story there. I had a couple come in to put in place a plan, and they had, assets. They had a commercial building, they had residential property, they had many, many pieces to their puzzle. She had had a diagnosis of dementia already, and we talked through the situation. I told them what I thought they needed, gave them a quote. They went on their way with my fee agreement. I followed up a couple times and never heard back. So I thought, well, they picked another attorney. It happens sometimes. And didn't think too much about it because I followed up a few times to make sure they didn't need me. A year later, the husband comes back in, and the wife has taken a tremendous decline in her mental abilities, to the point that as he's describing the situation to me, I realize I can't put anything together because she is not going to understand a bit what she is signing. So it's a very sad situation of someone who knew from what I told them what they needed, and for whatever reason, put it off still and didn't get anything in place. So I referred them to an attorney who does conservatorship and guardianship. So that is a court proceeding that they had to go through then. So they had to hire an attorney to represent husband. An attorney was appointed to represent wife to make sure husband wasn't just trying to pull one over on her and take over all the finances. So now we have two attorneys involved. We have all the expense. We have a hearing, which is open, by the way. I sat in on some of those hearings just waiting to get my little order signed by the judge. And so you have to have hearings, potentially the physicians testifying, and on and on.
And so there's no privacy with that, is there? That people are having to air all of their health concerns and everything that happened?
Absolutely.
Wow.
Yeah, it's not a closed session. And I suppose you could ask for it to be closed. I'm not sure the court would close it. So yeah, so it's, it's not private. Now it's public, it's expensive. And, you've got physicians in there, you've got at least two attorneys. And if it's a situation where it's not a husband, now it's children. If you've got children who might fight over who's going to be in charge, now you've got additional expenses and a mess, a real mess.
And we're talking thousands and thousands and thousands of dollars, it sounds like.
Absolutely.
Wow, that's scary.
Yeah, and it's thousands, even if it's a straightforward situation, it's
Yeah.
still going to be a substantial expense.
Wow. So how do we solve that problem?
So the way we make sure that that doesn't happen is we put in place, it's called a general durable power of attorney, and it's for finances. So it appoints somebody else to handle your legal and financial affairs. Even if you have a trust and your trustee would be able to handle what's in the trust, you still need that appointment of an agent to deal with your other legal things, to legally sign your name to tax returns, to deal with an IRS audit on your behalf, to deal with your Social Security payments or Medicare, insurance companies. Your IRA does not go in the trust, it stays in your name. So we need somebody who's appointed to be able to make your required minimum distribution so you don't pay the 50% penalty. Mm-hmm. So it's, it's one of the most crucial documents, and it's the one that's most often missing when someone comes in with a plan that either they've had a paralegal maybe do, or they tried to do online, or it's an old plan and they didn't realize the importance of that document, so it got lost somewhere along the way.
Yeah, yeah. Well, and I think we were talking before we started about when my mom had her colonoscopy, and everybody gets a colonoscopy over the age of 50. We didn't think anything of it. She went in, they found cancer. They wanted to check her in immediately. And the hospital, my dad was there, but we looked at the healthcare power. They asked for the healthcare power of attorney. I ran home, got it, brought it back, and they said, your name is not on this. And I'm the daughter. And so they let me in. But that was kind of like, shh. And, so it was, not a good thing by any means. And so that taught me, we immediately, when mom got out of the hospital, we went straight to the estate attorney and said, we need to add my name. We got to change this, we got to change that. Because, when it's too late after you have a scare. We didn't know she was going to go in for a normal procedure and end up in the hospital admitted for 7 days. So, it's a great example.
Yeah. And, a happy story in addition to yours, the same thing. I do have clients who come in a timely fashion, and we can get all of those documents in place. I can tell them other things that they can do, go to the bank, make sure the bank will accept it now while she's able to say, yes, this is my power of attorney. I want you to let my kids be able to be on the account, or my son or my sister, or whatever it is. And then the other thing you mentioned, having somebody as a backup. So sometimes people have the financial power of attorney, they've appointed their spouse. Well, you may think that the one with Alzheimer's will be the first to go, but that's 14 years. It might not happen. So you need to have that backup from the beginning. If my first choice isn't there, who's going to be next, and even who's going to be next after that. Yeah. Just to make sure that what we put in place that we might not ever be able to add to or change will, survive the test of time, so to speak.
Yeah. It's a really, I can't tell you, I have mine and I've had it since I was in my 20s, just because my parents raised me that you had to have all these documents in place for the just in case. It doesn't matter how old you are either. In right. reality, we're talking more of the seniors and how we can help them, but better safe than sorry. Have this is not an expensive thing to have, to put into place. So,
right.
So what's number 2?
So number 2 is the healthcare power of attorney. So I was going to tell the story about kids fighting over the healthcare decisions.
Yes.
But I have a number of clients who say, my kids are never going to fight. so I'm going to tell you a different sad story, one that just came to me this afternoon. And it is really sad. So unmarried partners, mom and dad do not approve of this relationship. The woman I knew became very ill with cancer. Her partner took care of her for years. But when it came to the end, when she was starting to really fail, parents came in and they kicked the partner out.
Oh,
Such a
no.
sad
And there
story.
was, of course, no paperwork to
No
say the partner
paperwork.
had any
Right,
rights.
right. Yeah. And partly, I think, probably because they thought they were too young. Who knows why else, but oh, when I heard that, and that was before I started doing estate planning, but it was, in the back of my head as I was starting to realize how important these documents are.
Yeah.
So, yeah, very sad story. But the
Yeah.
other story is, well, let me actually tell you what I
What is it?
heard from some doctors. So from people who are dealing with these situations where mom or dad or sister or brother, whoever it is in the hospital, no longer able to understand or to make decisions. And they're looking at the healthcare power of attorney. And one of the things that they told the group that they were speaking to is, please pick one person to make the ultimate decision. Certainly, if you've got 3 kids, let them all have some input. Let them all be able to access the doctor. So, get a good HIPAA release in place, which would be a 4th document. We're not going to talk about that, but, make sure that they can have information, but put it on one person to make that decision. And, that might be different for my husband, Andy, who's on, and me. That might be a different child who we would want to make that decision. So that I just pass that along as we think about that. I think for most of us, if we have full-grown adult children, they probably can make the decision together. But if they tend to fight, if they're younger and the emotions might overcome them, you may want to pick one who would be the person who would have the levelest head at that time.
And it's interesting, even so with my family, we have 3 of us and I'm the youngest. And so my dad figured, well, you're the youngest, you'll be the one who survives because one of my brothers is much older than me. So, but the challenge is that I've heard situations where normally the siblings get along just fine, but one has an entirely different belief system than the other. So in normal day-to-day interactions, Thanksgiving, Christmas, whatever, not a big deal. But do we pull the plug or not pull the plug? How long I remember this was the last healthcare decision my mom made with the lawyer before, and this was the last time she could sign her name, was when they said, how long, if you are being kept alive, how long do you want to be kept alive? And my mom turned to my dad and said, what did he put? Because she actually had no idea what span of time was anymore. Like, what is 3 weeks? What is 6 weeks? So we just literally squeaked under the wire with her dementia and with Alzheimer's. And so again, it goes back to, this is not an expensive thing to do. Put it in place, make a decision. I'm an advocate of pick one person and get their promise that they are going to involve everyone and take into account everyone's input. But bottom line is the buck stops with their decision.
Right.
Yeah.
So in some of my healthcare documents, I've actually put in, my son, John, is going to be my decision maker, but I'm asking him to consult with his 2 sisters.
Smart.
And whenever possible. So you don't want to make it, oh, have you consulted, because I can't let you make a decision unless you have, but you can do that general statement, when possible, consult first. And again, this is another place, make sure you've got the backup just in case, the first choice is not able. Who's next in line to make that decision and put that in place?
Very smart. I love that. Okay, so that covers 1 and 2. So we're talking durable power of attorney for finance, healthcare power of attorney. What's number 3? Drum roll, please.
So number 3 is the living will. So the first thing I want to talk about with that is the difference between a living will and a do not resuscitate. Because I have clients come in all the time. They are perfectly healthy 40-year-olds, and they say, I want a DNR. No, they don't. They really don't. So let me show you. I'm going to show you the back side of the DNR. So this is an orange document. This is actually filled out, so I don't want to show too much. But it's a document that you sign with, and you should do it with a medical doctor. The doctor's name is in here. There's information. So this one was signed in a hospice. So clearly a situation where somebody was ready to let go. So your average 40-year-old who's asking for a DNR doesn't really want that. If they were to be in my office and fall over with a heart attack, they want to be resuscitated because they're probably going to make it, right?
Right.
So what we want to put in place for most people is a living will. So the living will is a document, think of it as an advance directive to your family and to the doctors about what care you would want if you're brain dead, so you can't tell them anymore what you want. If it really is the end, you're in a situation where the doctors are saying there's nothing more, then, for me, I just want pain relief at that point. Excuse me. I don't want to be on a ventilator if it really is the end. Mm-hmm. Now, coronavirus, I might want the ventilator, by the way.
But these, you bring up a good point. Yeah, you bring up a good point.
Right now, it's a scary thing right now. But for someone who is diagnosed with Alzheimer's, having a fully developed living will can be really helpful. So I have, most of my living wills are very straightforward. If I'm brain dead, if it's, the doctors say it's the end, give me pain relief. Mm-hmm. But I have another one that is more robust that says, if I get to this point, here's what I want. And can include some DNR language. Do not resuscitate if I'm at the point where I'm not recognizing my family anymore, consistently not recognizing them. Mm-hmm. Then at that point, if I have a heart attack, good, because I'm done at that point. I'm not really me anymore. So somebody who has Alzheimer's, a diagnosis of dementia, might want to consider something more robust than the standard living will. They might want a DNR depending on their age. If they're older, they might decide just go ahead and do a DNR at that point. But that's something they should also talk through with their doctor about, what is their prognosis? What are there things they can do to delay this and actually be with their family longer, which we're going to talk about in another seminar. So, definitely this is an important one for someone who doesn't want for, this disease just to drag on with them really no longer mentally there.
Right. Well, and also, I'm a planner, so it wouldn't be disadvantageous to have a DNR no matter how old you are, right? It's just that it's more likely that you're not going to have one. So for instance, if you were in a car accident and you were brain dead and you didn't have a DNR, they're going to do everything they can to keep you alive for as long as they can.
Yes, and
right?
until they establish that you're in what they call a persistent vegetative state. And then at that point, they turn to the family, who may or may not know what your wishes are. So that's the advantage of the advance directive, is it gives your wishes to your family. So, and I do have a story of someone who did not have these documents and had verbally told their healthcare agent, they had a healthcare power of attorney, verbally told their healthcare agent what they wanted, and the hospital ignored that because there was no living will at the time. So that can also lead to court proceedings. The living will actually came about because of some of the cases back in the 80s, I think it was, You know, the one in Florida, which escapes my mind, but that, you know, there was a dispute. Husband wanted to keep her, let her go. Parents wanted to keep her on the ventilator and continued to give it a chance. And she stayed that way for years. You know, what would she have said if she'd had the opportunity to sign a living will? What would have been her choice?
Yeah. Yeah. And that's the thing is my parents wanted us to know, wanted the doctors to know, wanted to, you know, and mom was in memory care, what our wishes, you know, he wanted to know what mom's wishes were and what his were. And he was totally respectful of them being different if they were. And ultimately it's our responsibilities as human beings on this planet to not force people in our family, our loved ones, the medical people, to make decisions that could be life or death. They could be, what level of care do you want? You know, I mean, there's all these decisions. That's your choice. That's your privilege. And one other thing that I found fascinating was that if you think that you don't need these documents, and Libby, help me out with this one. Is it true that if I don't have these documents, the state gets to decide, or the state's lawyers get to decide in some of these situations? Like the financial one, I'm sure that one.
Right, right. Yeah. So for your will, you know, if you don't have a will, the state has decided who can be your personal representative and where your assets are going. So, you know, if that plan isn't good for you, then you need to put your own plan in place. For the power of attorney, the financial power of attorney, yeah, the judge is going to decide in that conservatorship case who's going to be in charge. And they're going to have to report every year. They're going to have to file financial statements, all of that, again, public record, if anybody cared to go look. So, you know, definitely that's an issue, because that's what the law requires, is for that person to file that annual report. Sometimes the judge requires more often. So definitely. And then the healthcare power of attorney, that's the same. So there are provisions in the law that your spouse can make that decision for you, and that your children can. So for somebody who's going through a divorce, they might not want their spouse to be making that decision. You're still the spouse, right? Yeah, you're not divorced legally. Signs the decree. And then for children, you know, again, if you've got children who fight, now you've got a problem, because they all have an equal right to make that decision. So, and then it doesn't really go beyond that.
Okay. You know? We do have some questions. So how specific can you get in a living will? Can you add in a request for specific treatment to be used in case of something, say, if you had a traumatic brain injury?
So the living will really is intended to deal with end of life.
Where would you put that then?
So certainly, I mean, certainly you can in your living will designate, you know, certain requirements if you're at this stage that you want, you know, nothing but comfort care. Mm-hmm. The issue is if you don't have a situation where you have Alzheimer's or dementia, if you're young, if the doctors think you can come back from that, they might not honor it. So I think you have to be careful about what exactly you're putting in. So I have a lot of clients who want to try to specify in their healthcare power of attorney, you know, specifics. The specifics should be between you and your agent. So your agent truly understands what you want, what kind of care you would want under scenarios that you're worried about.
So there's no legal document that would, I mean, how do they, so let's say your agent knows what you want, but your spouse or your parent says, no, that's not what she would want.
The agent has the power.
Okay.
That is Yeah, you've given them the power. So that's, again, that's why it's important to pick that person who will honor your wishes, even if it isn't what they would do.
Jennifer said, thank you. Okay, then another, we're gonna get to yours, Zach, but we're gonna go to Gary's next, which is, does AZ require the living will to be filed with the state? How does a hospital know if we have one if it is not filed and the power of attorney is not available or does not know the person is in the hospital? Yeesh.
Right. So it does not require it to be filed. The Secretary of State does have a registry. So you can register those. And mine is registered. So I'm going to pull out my little card if I can get it out of my wallet. So I keep this behind my driver's license. And so it's from the Secretary of State. I've registered my documents so they can do the user ID and password on here and look it up to verify that some, who's walked up and said, I can make the decision for her, verify that, or contact someone. And so, even if you don't register, to have something, because they're going to try to look to see who you are,
right?
Have something that says, in case of emergency, here's who to call.
Okay, so if the power of attorney isn't available though, or doesn't know the person's in the hospital, I'm assuming that basically they follow their statute of requirements as a medical facility.
Right. Yeah.
So the next question is from Zach, actually. Can you clarify that the general durable power of attorney is the same as the financial power of attorney? Both were mentioned, but it sounds like they are the same. Are there any other POAs that sound similar but do different things?
Yes. So in Arizona, most attorneys call a financial power of attorney the general durable power of attorney, just based on our statutes. And then our healthcare power of attorney, we call it just healthcare power of attorney. Other states sometimes use that durable or general durable for a healthcare power of attorney as well. So the important part is this a power of attorney for healthcare or is it a power of attorney for finances?
Right.
And as we said today, you need both.
Right. Absolutely. Even if one is nested under the other. I know when I lived in New Hampshire, there was a durable power of attorney and there was a healthcare section to it. And then one more is, can a person have more than one power of attorney as a backup or alternate if the primary person is not available?
So yes, you should have a backup or alternate in case your primary person is either unavailable. So, it might be your spouse who's in that same car accident with you. So now who's going to make the decision if he or she can't? Or an alternate, just in case they pass away and you haven't changed it, or they have Alzheimer's, they can't make that decision. I usually say I don't like to do dual financial people on the powers of attorney. I think that's not a good idea.
I would agree with you. Yeah, absolutely. All right. Well, so how can people, this has been very informative. Thank you so much. Looks like, Scott, do you want me to share that comment? So Scott says there's a movement happening now that people will be able to upload their living will and documents to the new statewide electronic health record so that first responders and emergency personnel at hospitals can expand upon what is currently available through the Secretary of State. The company handling this will transfer those docs to the larger healthcare network. That's interesting.
That is interesting. So, yeah. If you wouldn't mind emailing me some information on that, I'd be curious. I think it'd be good to be able to digitally upload these. Right now, you have to mail them to the state. I don't believe there's digital upload yet, but I don't know about transferring them to the other health network because these things can change over time.
Yeah.
So I don't know that I'd want mine going to the healthcare.
Get the old version. Well,
Exactly
he
right.
said that there's a movement. So it sounds like someone's applying, doing some sort of legislation or putting something up for a vote. So yeah, I'll connect the two of you for you to chat.
Thank you.
One more question. Is your spouse automatically given the same power as the POAs that you have discussed, or is it best to get the POA just in case?
Yeah, for the financial, they do not automatically have the power to act for you. So for the financial, you must have it, even if you're married. For instance, if the house is in both of your names, you can't sell it without their signature.
That's good.
If they're the only one on the mortgage company won't talk to you anymore. They won't talk to you. They'll only talk to your spouse. So yeah, for financial, you must have it. For the healthcare, there's a statute that says they have the right to make decisions.
Yeah.
So, but
I know that last one this is really the last one. Are the forms that you get at the Attorney General's office website good enough to use? And I would tell this person, talk to Libby. It's a free consultation.
the ones at the website are pretty thin. They'll do the trick. But for instance, what I put in place also makes sure that the agent can hire and fire the doctors, can move you to a different location if they don't think you're getting proper care or they're not honoring the healthcare power of attorney. The Attorney General's forms are really basic.
Yeah.
So better than nothing, but a good idea to get something that's a little more robust in place.
So tell us a little bit, we're going to wrap up now. Tell us a little bit about how do we get a hold of you? I know that Andy posted your information, but we have on our registration page something about a free consultation. So
yes. So I do a free consultation. So even if you have documents in place, if they're older and you're looking to make sure they're still in good order, I do a free review of those. So, I give you about an hour of time to go over that. If you don't have something in place, send you a worksheet so we can talk about your specific situation. One of the best ways to get in touch is go to my website. There's a place to schedule, and you can also just call or email. So the website is pretty easy, libbybanks.com.
Well, that does make it easy, doesn't it? I just reposted it for everyone as well. And Andy did too. So now everybody knows where to find you. Well, and thank you so much, Libby. This has been very informative. And as far as I'm concerned, so where Libby and I match up is that I actually work with family members who have individuals in their family who either have been diagnosed with mild cognitive impairment, dementia, or Alzheimer's. This is a very long and arduous journey that's very emotional, and there's tons of decisions to make. And having been through it, I can pretty much tell you, and honestly, you know that phrase, I've written the book on it. Yeah, I have. So, if you'd like to sit down and talk a bit for, maybe 30 minutes to kind of walk through your scenario, we can build a plan for you and have a long-term way for you to develop the longest relationship you can with this individual and the best relationship, because both what Libby and I are in the business of is making sure that your relationships don't suffer, that your loved ones don't suffer as a result of whatever situation you might be in. So in my case, it is focused on dementia and that journey. So now we do have a webinar coming up on March 3rd. And it's actually the flip of what we're doing, where I was interviewing Libby, she's going to interview me, and I'll be talking about the 3 ways to help your memory and your quality of life. So whether you're a caregiver or a senior, there are ways for you to have a better quality of life, whether you're a caregiver in the situation of taking care of a loved one, or a senior who really wants to, prolong your quality of life. And dementia is not a natural thing. So there are ways for you to actually prevent that from happening, or at least mitigate the symptoms and delay that onset. So you want to join us on March 3rd at 5 p.m. If for some reason that time doesn't work, email me at pam@itsnotthatsimple.com or reply back to one of the emails that I sent to you as a reminder and let me know, and we'll make sure that you we'll make sure that you either get a video or that we might change the time. But right now, March 3rd at 5 p.m. for how to improve your memory and life quality. So, all right. I think that's it. Thank you guys. We got lots of thank yous in the chat. So thank you again. Appreciate it. And we will see you in March on March 3rd. Thanks, Libby.
Thank you.
All right. Take care. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.